Hi, I'm Greg Cutter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, my next guest, former CIA officer, wrote a book called From the Company of Shadows, all about the deep state, the New World Order, globalist, the people that run our government from the shadows. He is former CIA officer Kevin Shipp. Kevin Shipp, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Greg, it's good to be on with you as always.
I want to talk to you about this thing that we've had with the president giving Attorney General Barr the power to declassify. Barr has gone to the president and said, listen, the people at the FBI, Christopher Wray, the people at the CIA, Gina Haspel, will not give me any information. And Trump, boom, turned the table over and said, you will give him information. He does have the power to declassify. What's going on? Is there some big battle that the mainstream media is not reporting on?
Well, as usual, they're not reporting on it. This is a historic battle between the President of the United States and what I personally call the shadow government. Some call the deep state. That includes the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA. And President Trump is the first president in our history to stand up against this shadow government, especially considering the fact that they have been spying on him since he was a presidential candidate. So this is huge. It's historic. Nothing like this has ever occurred, really, in any Western government.
When he says, listen, when he started back, during his campaign, saying, the Obama administration wiretapped me, spied on me, was he right about that from the very beginning, that he was spied on?
He was absolutely right, and I think part of that is because then NSA Director Mike Rogers went and secretly briefed Trump that he was being spied on, and Rogers went to the FISA court and advised them that the NSA was illegally spying on the Trump campaign. And subsequently, Barack Obama tried to get Mike Rogers fired. He's the true hero in all of this. But I want to note, Greg, back in 2012, the spying that the Obama administration was doing on its political opponents, Donald Trump being at the top of that list, was using existing NSA surveillance technology essentially on Obama's political opponents. Now, that was NSA surveillance. It's called a 702. They were filing 702s for the unmasking of NSA surveillance existing technology on American citizens. And when they got that 702 information, it included everything: phone calls, text messages, internet searches, emails, the works on whatever person they were targeting and unmasking. And Obama did that extensively back in 2012. And then, of course, we have the FISA abuse and the spying in 2016.
You're telling me that there wasn't any really Operation Hammer, and we'll get into that in a minute, but I want to get into this first, that the spying was just that Comey, that Brennan, that Clapper, Obama, they just took the NSA stuff and used it against their opponents? I mean, are you talking about blackmail?
Yeah, they took that information and they used their most personal communications against them for blackmail, for political targeting, for their operation, which eventually resulted in the false dossier. That's exactly what they did. They took NSA 702 information on these U.S. citizens and unmasked it. And if you remember, Samantha Powers unmasked at least 250 names. That's about one per day. And she's the UN ambassador. What the heck is the UN ambassador doing unmasking NSA surveillance using these 702s? We think that it is Comey that did that for her and then fed her the information from the NSA 702s, which is existing technology that goes back before 9/11 and was amplified after 9/11.
So tell me about this battle going on. I mean, if they were doing everything on the up and up, why wouldn't they come out and say, well, here you go. Here's all the intel we had. Why the big fight?
Well, as I've been saying for years now, the shadow government has been pretty much in an unbridled fashion controlling the Congress, controlling the judiciary, and controlling the president of the United States. And no one has stood up against it until enter Donald J. Trump, a candidate that they did not figure on, who is not bound financially or otherwise to this shadow government or their threats. And he has got them quaking in their boots because they've been engaged in illegal surveillance. They've been engaged in a false counterintelligence operation against the Trump campaign, literally planting spies in the Trump campaign. And I can guarantee you that they are scrambling like rats trying to get off a ship. They're now pointing fingers at each other. Comey's pointing fingers at Clapper's, pointing fingers at Comey, pointing fingers at Loretta Lynch, and on and on. They are scared because if this stuff is declassified, The American people will see how they have broken the law, and some of these parties, what they have done amounts essentially to treason in that they literally were spying and attempted a coup against a duly elected sitting president of the United States.
So when Trump comes out, and he just came out just recently, and my comment about this is that the media, he says, listen, this was an insurance policy. He said this, and that's Strzok and Page, the lovers, insurance policy. That's treason, and he said it again. That's treason. Crickets in the press.
Yeah.
Why?
Because they know it. They know that he's right, and they're trying their level best to support these shadow government deep state players because they were complicit. The media was complicit in this false Russian collusion attack on the president. So there's no way they're going to report on information that is going to expose their role in it.
When you're saying their role, I mean, I have long said that there are people in the media that, and not just the reporters, all the way up to their bosses, because I never did anything as a reporter. When I was doing something on the president of Ford Motor Company, the president of whatever, with some terrible defect where people died, everybody all the way up the ladder knew about it. You think the president of the United States, that everybody all the way up the ladder would know about it? Of course they would. You're telling me that some of these people were involved in at least sedition or helping the treasonous acts?
I think they're assisting the treasonous acts, and a good example of that is James Clapper with his top secret SCI clearance, and John Brennan with his top secret SCI clearance, which is still intact, by the way, were going as mockingbirds to the Washington Post, to MSNBC, and to CNN, and literally parroting the CIA talking points, attempting to foster this coup and then cover up the false collusion.
And you're saying that because the MSNBC, CNN, NBC, all the other ones, the Washington Post, New York Times, you're saying that they should have known better.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, they should have known better if they were really serving the people and serving the true freedom of the press. But they're not concerned about that. They're concerned about trying to remove Trump, getting Trump at all costs. There have been, every time you see CNN, the Washington Post, for example, quote, sources, quote, intelligence sources, quote, high-level sources, they're referring to the CIA feeding them information to twist the reporting that goes out to the American people.
You're saying that you're thinking that these people should be prosecuted right along with the people that committed the out-and-out treason, Strzok, Page. They did have a media leak strategy, that's a fact. They talked about it. They said they had their words, media leak strategy. And so you're saying that they would not have a First Amendment right, that you don't have the right to engage in sedition and treason?
Well, it's very difficult to prosecute journalists, and it should be. So prosecuting some of the executive members of MSNBC, CNN, and the Washington Post, I don't think that's going to happen, and maybe it shouldn't, because we want our press to remain free and free to be wrong, although in this case they were manipulated. So I don't think they're going to be held legally accountable.
Well, it's not, Levin of the famed a guy on the radio, the great one. Levin says that, listen, they did this on purpose. They got it wrong on purpose. So if they got it wrong on purpose, I mean, doesn't that mean they're complicit?
They are complicit. And as I mentioned, we wish they would be charged, but since they're journalists, they'll use that as their cover against prosecution. And it will probably, unless these documents reveal a direct intentional role without a reasonable doubt, then you can probably go into the prosecution realm. But the umbrella protection over journalists is pretty strong. What they'll do, I think, is clearly indict the government officials who are involved.
And they don't have any First Amendment protection for that, for leaking classified. What happens if they got a paper trail where they took money? There are some people out there saying that some of these journalists took money. If they have a paper trail where they took money, they took bribes, and intentionally put out false stories, are they toast?
They're toast. In that case, you got them. In that case, you can indict them. And in that case, you can charge them for sedition.
So tell me how you think this is going to unfold now. So you got the president. He's basically deputized William Barr, the attorney general, to declassify whatever he finds necessary to do so within the general guidelines. Is Christopher Wray, the FBI director, and Gina Haspel, the CIA director, are they going to be successful in stonewalling the president of the United States?
Not this president. They've been successful in all past presidents, but not this one. FBI Director Wray has refused to declassify the information that Trump has asked for. He's another James Comey. He's another FBI swamp creature. Gina Haspel, who I've been concerned about since her appointment, is resisting disclosure of this information. And Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates is refusing to declassify the information, saying that it will reveal the identity of a sensitive source next to Putin. Well, if that's identity is so sensitive, why did they leak it to the press that it existed? So I don't think that's what it is.
So you had a sensitive source close to Putin, and you're going to say we have a sensitive source close to Putin. I mean, I'm just a general studies degree major guy. I think that sounds stupid to me.
Yeah, it does. And when they're covering up, and the CIA and the FBI, they will do stupid things using their power as the leverage behind that. These things are stupid, but these people are arrogant. They're narcissists. They've been in power for too long, and they actually think that these lies are going to fly. But this time, I think they've been caught with their britches all the way down to their ankles.
Well, they took a shot, and they missed.
Yeah.
They were going to take the president out in their insurance policy in case he got elected, which he did, and their insurance policy shot snake eyes.
That's right. They shot and they missed, and it was a bad miss because in doing that, in trying to take Donald Trump out of the White House, they tipped their hand. And because we now have an attorney general, and it's good. William Barr, I was watching him because he was a former CIA attorney, and I know how nasty they can be. So I was kind of skeptical at first, but now I think I'm right behind Barr, and I think the fact that Barr was a CIA attorney gives him an inside view, much like myself, an inside view of the CIA, how it operates and how it covers things up. So Barr has an edge over Gina Haspel, Coates, and the FBI in that he knows how that system works. He knows where they're going to try to stonewall them. He knows how they're going to try to misuse classification to conceal what they've done. And they have got probably the worst president that they expected to expose what they're doing, and the worst attorney general, both at the same time, with subpoena power that is willing and actually coming against them. They are quaking in their boots. This has never happened before. They've never been challenged like this before. That's why they were so cocky. And now we got a president that's independent, can't be bought, can't be blackmailed. And we have an attorney general that is the same and came from inside the CIA and knows how it operates in terms of cover-up.
Could Haspel and Wray be charged with obstruction of justice?
Yes. If this is a crime, if this is criminal activity, and it was and is, then they can be charged with a crime, and they can be indicted. And I think, there are several that are going to be indicted. Comey, in my opinion, Brennan, in my opinion. But if Gina Haspel, for example, continues to resist the president of the United States, her constitutional boss, and not reveal this, that Trump has, for at least 200 days, the authority to remove her from her position.
And he could so he could call up and say, "Hey, Gina, you're fired.
Yes.
We're locking you out of your office. Get out of the building."
Yeah.
Hey, Christopher Wray, you're fired. We're locking you out of your office. Get out of the building. I got people that are going to be intermediates for the next 200 days. I don't have to run by Congress.
You could walk them out of the door with security and then pull their clearance.
Holy cow! Oh my God! Oh. So you think this is going to get nasty? Going to come to blows?
It's going to come to blows. It's going to get nasty. The shadow government, CIA, FBI, have way too much to hide, including criminal activity. They will do everything they can to stop this president from declassifying these documents. It's a war. It's a huge battle going on in Washington, D.C., probably the most historic battle in our government, without a doubt, in the history of this country.
Can they have a false flag? Are they going to try to just, do crazy things like false flags and another 9/11. I mean, that was crazy time. Building 7 fell down. Nothing hit it. Are they going to have another false flag probably event? Is that what they're going to try to do? And I think they've tried to do that in the past.
Well, Greg, they have done it in the past. Start going all the way back to the Vietnam War when they faked the attack on a U.S. carrier with ghosts on the radar and started the Vietnam War. Pearl Harbor was a false flag. FDR knew that the Japanese were going to attack and remove the important ships from the harbor and let them be attacked. Then we have 9/11 where those buildings fell, especially Tower 7, fell without being hit by a plane. We know that this government has engaged in false flags in the past, and we need to be on our toes watching to see if the shadow government tries to do that again.
So who do you give the edge to right now? Now the Mueller report's done. There's all kinds of questions for what, not just what he said, but what he didn't look into. I mean, the Hillary thing. You're supposed to do an investigation of Russian collusion.
That's correct.
You didn't, and Hillary Clinton clearly colluded with the Russians. Christopher Steele
Without a doubt.
now is saying he's not going to work with the Department of Justice on the dossier he was paid to make up. What do you make of that?
Christopher Steele is going to be indicted. Christopher Steele is at the center of this whole false intelligence operation. It was Christopher Steele who's in charge of the Russian division in MI6. It was Christopher Steele that went to this high-level Russian intelligence source and got disinformation from they paid a Russian intelligence officer for this information that was false and then made it look real and disseminated it to Brennan and others. Christopher Steele is in the middle of this storm, in the middle of this hurricane. I think he is going to be charged. And we have extradition with the UK. Bring him over and let's try him here.
So Trump can charge him. You know, something I've been bitching about for I don't know how long. You know, right after Donald Trump was elected, you know, the head of GCHQ quit 3 days, 51 years old. I'm going to spend time. Yeah, I'm going to spend time with my family. And I'm telling you what, Theresa May worked in the equivalent of Department of Homeland Security. She knows all about terrorism and counterterrorism. And I don't think the reason why she's quitting is because of Brexit. I think she's quitting because she committed treason. She attacked one of the top ally that the UK has.
Yes.
I think she quit because of that. Donald Trump has said, hey, I wish they'd look into what happened in the UK.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
This is shocking because the Five Eyes, the UK, Australia, of which are part of that, and Canada, the Five Eyes, especially the Brits, MI6 and GCHQ, were responsible in coordinating with the NSA, the CIA, John Brennan, to spy on an incumbent president and sitting president of the United States. This is completely outrageous. It is going to injure probably permanently our relationships with the former King George country, in that they actually were going around the U.S. Constitution because they're in a foreign government and spying on our president. This is going to come out. They're going to be shown to the world regarding what they've done, including Christopher Steele and Theresa May, and it is a mess of the highest proportions.
You know, Theresa May she should be, could be indicted for this.
She could, you know, as a head of state like that, it's doubtful because of the power structure around her, but she should be, yes.
Tell me about how serious this is for a foreign government. I mean, they're wondering why this didn't happen sooner, why the arrests weren't made. Wow, this was a unbelievable global attempt with our top allies in Five Eyes, Canada, Australia, UK, to name a few. Well, at least Australia and the UK for sure. Canada, I'm not sure. Do you have any information on Canada being involved in this too?
Not directly. They're one of the Five Eyes. I know that. We are certain that the Australian Secret Intelligence Organization, through former Ambassador Alexander Downer, an illegal Clinton Foundation supporter, gave $25 million to the Clinton Foundation from Australian tax dollars. That was Alexander Downer. It was Alexander Downer that set up George Papadopoulos in the bar and then passed information to the FBI and the CIA, that things that George Papadopoulos never said, and started the entire investigation based on a setup. The FBI calls it a lure. And that was Australian Secret Intelligence Service, Alexander Downer. That was Christopher Steele of British MI6, right there at the forefront in a false dossier attempt to remove a president of the United States.
Why? Here's my question, and I think I know the answer. I think the answer is because they're up to their necks in bribes and treason already. Yeah. Why would all these people commit one felony after another? On top of all the other stuff they did, but why would they commit one felony after another? Because they're already in so deep that it doesn't make any difference.
Oh, they're in way. They're past being in deep, and it's the bizarre thing is they all did this. They all engaged in this serious criminal activity to protect one person and try to get one person elected, and that's the global connection. That is, I call her the global princess, Hillary Rodham Clinton. They all did this. They all broke the law because the Clintons had put most of them, the majority of them, in place over the last couple decades. They were servants and fixers of Clinton. That includes Robert Mueller, who fixed 3 cases to protect Hillary from prosecution. They are all fixing for Hillary Clinton. This is how deep the shadow government deep state runs, the corruption, the blackmail, the power structure, the money. It is sickening how rampant it is in Washington, and it extends into globalism, extends over to the United Kingdom and even former Australian officials.
Do you think that Christopher Wray would instruct FBI agents to attack members of the Trump administration? Do you think is that far-fetched?
I think that's far-fetched. I don't think they're going to go that far. Yeah.
Do you think that he might bring the military in and clamp down on the FBI, the President of the United States? I mean, we have a treason working here. We have a treason in 2 big agencies. Yeah,
we do. No question about it. And it's up to Attorney General Barr to decide how he's going to handle that. I think what he's going to do is indict. I think there probably will be a grand jury appointed to look into this. And I think that former NSA Director Mike Rogers will be one of the people that testify before that grand jury, considering the FBI's 702 requests from the NSA and British GCHQ's role in the NSA spying on the Trump campaign. So I think there's going to be a grand jury impaneled. I think Mike Rogers will be on that grand jury, and it's going to be that grand jury that indicts Brennan, Comey, probably Clapper, possibly Loretta Lynch, and Sally Yates and others for an attempted coup against the President of the United States.
How about Hillary Clinton and her? I mean, they're protecting Hillary because she had a global charity fraud. She committed treason, and I'm going to flat out. People died because of her unprotected server. And I wonder if the server was unprotected on purpose, so people could gain information from it. There were all kinds of people, the Chinese for one. She committed treason at the very least for being so stupid, but I think she was stupid. Too stupid to be stupid, leaving that thing unprotected. Isn't Hillary Clinton up for treason charges as well? I mean, this is the person they were protecting with a global charity fraud, laundering money.
Yes. And she violated the Espionage Act as well as several other felonious violations of Title 18. There's no question about it. And it just shows you how extensive her ties and power is through the so-called Clinton Foundation, the biggest charity fraud probably in the history of the world. She should have been indicted a long time ago. She should have been indicted for treason. She should have been indicted for espionage. And I agree with you, Greg. I think her server was unsecure on purpose.
Wow. Well, I figured that out on dude, I have USA Watchdog. Do you know how much security I have on USA Watchdog? I mean, she just had like the equivalent of I've got a storm door on my house that, is like car glass, okay? I've got, a deadbolt and other stuff and reinforced doors on my house front and back, as many people do. She had the equivalent of a screen door that opened inward. So if you came to that server, you just walked in.
That's correct. Yes. And she did that because Hillary Clinton is a global criminal. She's a criminal. Yes, I said it. I'll say it again. Hillary Clinton is a criminal. She needs to be indicted. She needs to be charged, needs to be prosecuted. If she is not, then our constitutional system and our constitutional justice system is a sham.
They protected her because they were all on the take. Is that
right.
A good assessment? Tell me.
They're all on the take. They're on the take for money and power, and they're on the take with blackmail that reaches even into Congress, in my opinion.
What about all this deal with some of the other people in Congress? I mean, there are so many crimes and so little time to talk about. I mean, you have the border is wide open. We have an unbelievable amount of people claiming asylum, quote unquote asylum, running across the border. They won't allocate any more money for that. What's going on with Congress and the likes of Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats?
Oh, goodness. Well, let's start here. Let's start with the Never Trump Republicans. We saw that Republican come out and say he's the first Republican to call for impeachment of President. Amash. And then we find out Trump had just started raising tariffs on China. We find out that Amash has major contribution and stakes in Chinese industry and in China. So no wonder he's a never Trumper. That's the kind of corruption at that level that we're talking about. Money, fame, corruption, and power to levels that are almost unimaginable.
Where would you say the advantage lies right now? If you were just going to handicap this, as a bookie in Vegas, who has the advantage at the moment?
Well, the reason that they're scared, the reason that Adam Schiff continues to lie, and he's going to be one of the ones that's going to be exposed. They are terrified that Donald Trump cannot be manipulated. As I said, he's got a unique personality, but that's the kind of personality needed. He's a maverick. He does what he does and doesn't care about who tries to resist it. And now you have Attorney General Bill Barr, who is serving the president as he should, as his attorney general, and actually doing a real investigation into this silent coup against the president, against the false dossier, against the unmasking of NSA through 702 requests by Comey and others, and against the NSA spying going all the way back to 2012. And then in 2016, the false FISAs applications, warrants that were submitted by the FBI. Bill Barr is investigating all of that. They are scared. They are terrified. They're fighting back in the news media. They're fighting back by withholding information because they know that this is huge. This is going to result in charges.
I mean, the people that are there now could get wrapped up in a obstruction of justice, as you said.
You bet.
That's got to be frightening for them. I mean, they can only go. Gina Haspel can only go so far. Christopher Wray can only go so far before the president, calls over and says, "You see those two people out in your front door? Yeah, get out. We're sealing your office."
Yes, that's right. That is absolutely correct. He has the power to do that. And then she resists his orders and not turning this stuff over, especially for these ridiculous claims that will reveal a source that they revealed already to the media. Then, yes, Donald Trump can have security show up at her door, walk her out of the building, and pull her security clearance.
And you're a former CIA guy, so I won't get you to comment on the FBI, but there are guys in the CIA that would say, yeah, we'll back the president on this.
Oh, you better believe it. There's a lot of agents within the CIA that are just as disgusted about this as I was and is. As a matter of fact, I've got some of them. They won't do it themselves. The risk is high, and I understand, but they're supporting me and cheering me on because they're fed up with this kind of corrupt political influence on the CIA. It's supposed to be an unbiased intelligence collection agency, and it's been a part of this coup under John Brennan. No, there's a lot of good CIA officers that want to see this thing come out.
Well, Brennan broke the law. He conducted an op on U.S. soil against an incoming U.S. president, and after he got elected.
That's correct. In my view, John Brennan is going to jail.
Whew, boy. So you think the advantage, clearly Trump has the advantage at this point?
Oh, yeah. Trump has the advantage because of his independence, who he is, and he has the advantage now that he has Bill Barr on his side, who is a very competent, very careful investigator who is going to handle this investigation like it should have been objectively. And as I mentioned earlier, Bill Barr knows the CIA. He knows the shadow government. He's been inside. He's seen them abuse the power of secrecy, and he knows exactly how to handle that. That's the worst thing that could come along for the shadow government, CIA, FBI ever, that somebody knows them from the inside and is now investigating that.
This whole Operation Hammer thing with a guy named Christopher Montgomery. I think that's the Dennis Montgomery. And you're saying that forget that. And listen, they got the information that's already being done at the NSA, and they did it illegally. That they didn't invent a new program. That this guy with 47 hard drives, he'd be arrested for stealing 47 hard drives. You're saying forget that. They took the information. Comey, Clapper, Brennan. They just took the information out of the NSA illegally, is what you're saying.
That's correct. It was not the hammer. And I am probably one of the only ones that don't think the hammer is legitimate. And I don't think Dennis Montgomery's background has credibility. I've been given some of the evidence that Montgomery allegedly turned over, and that is the property receipts for the hard drives he allegedly turned in to the FBI. Those property receipts, so-called, from the FBI, they have his signature on them, but there's no signature on the received by line on any of them, except the last one has a scribbled signature and a line across it, and there's nothing on that page. On and on and on it goes. Vault 7 referred to the hammer as a throwing platform for browser exploitation. It was not NSA-like spying, although it was spying and pretty disgusting. What I'm saying is this was not the hammer. This was NSA domestic surveillance that has been going on since before 9/11, increased after 9/11. And what they did in 2012 was they went in, Comey and others and Brennan, and requested that 702 information existing already on NSA supercomputers. And they used that 702 information to spy on the Trump campaign. Then in 2016, the FBI under Comey swore 4 false FISA affidavits to the FISA court to get illegal NSA surveillance on Carter Page and others. That is what happened. That's where the spying was. They did spy on Donald Trump. It was extensive. It was criminal, but it was existing systems that the NSA already had in place.
And they did this under the direction of Obama. Could they have
Yes.
done this without President Obama saying, "Yeah, yeah, good idea"? I mean, and the reason why was blackmail.
This leads all the way to Barack Obama and, of course, to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton being the blackmailer extraordinaire, and Barack Obama with his threats and his power. Of course, in my opinion, he was a subversive president, and I think you can prove that. So they were using this power to intimidate others, probably to blackmail others, especially in the case of Hillary Clinton. There's no question in my mind she was blackmailing people. And that's exactly what they were doing, misusing. Really, essentially, we had a penetration all the way up to our White House in the form of Barack Obama. And they all thought Hillary was going to come into his place, the global princess. They all were engaging in this flagrant criminal activity, thinking she was going to get elected. Then all of a sudden, boom, the unthinkable happened for them. Donald Trump was elected, and they freaked out. They tried to turn up the heat with this fake Russia collusion to divert their collusion. It backfired. It failed. Now we have Attorney General Barr, and they're in a lot of trouble.
How bad? This is, even though you're not reading about this in the mainstream press, how bad do you think this is going to get? Could they crash the markets as part of a false flag? Could they blow something up? Tell me, how bad do you think this could get?
That is how sensitive this is, because this could, if it's not handled properly, cause a serious stock market crash without question. And that's one of the things they can do, is they can push this out into the public, making it look like it's a huge constitutional crisis, causing the stock market to crash and everybody to go nuts. And we have to keep our eyes open for a false war, some sort of false flag, some sort of perhaps a false terrorist attack, manipulation of the stock market. Keep an eye on what the Federal Reserve is doing with its interest rates. They're going to try something, Greg. They have to try something, or they're going to go to prison for years. So I would urge all Americans out there to keep your eyes open and watch what the shadow government, the CIA, the FBI specifically do to try to divert attention. The false collusion didn't work. That was their big gun. That was their big game. And as you said, they missed their target. So they've got to find something else to do to wag the dog, or to get people's attention off the fact that they have committed multiple felonies.
Could one of these people at the CIA or FBI, Ray or Haspel, go, okay, listen, I don't want to be charged for obstruction of justice, and I don't want you to fire me. I'll roll over. Could some of these guys roll over? I mean, Gina Haspel was the station chief, I think, in the UK when they hatched Crossfire Hurricane, this whole insurance policy, wasn't she?
Well, yes, and Gina was in charge of the torture program, and she was the one that signed off on the destruction of the 10 torture videos requested by Congress. That's not a good thing. So we need to keep an eye on her. We need to keep an eye on her specifically. We need to keep a very strong eye on Christopher Wray. He is another Comey. He's a deep swamp narcissist who will do whatever he can to protect the FBI. You can count on it.
So do you think these people are already in so deep that you're just going to risk obstruction of justice and firing?
Yeah, yes, and as to your point earlier, some of them will roll over. If they're given any sort of break on their prison sentence, they're going to roll over on each other. It's already starting with Comey pointing fingers at Brennan, and Brennan pointing fingers at Comey and at Lynch. It's already started. So some of them will roll over. Some of them will give up the goods to save their own skin. That's essentially what rats do. Anyway, go ahead.
This is the worst. This is the worst treason crisis in American history.
Yes.
I mean, what would you think? Am I going too far?
No, you're not going too far. That's absolutely correct. This is the biggest constitutional attack against the president in the history of Western government. Nonetheless, not to mention the history of the United States. This is huge. This is historic. This has never happened before. It's going to get worse. The battle's going to get stronger in Washington with the shadow government deep state against President Trump. It's going to get nasty. The deep state shadow government is going to try to start using things to deflect this and protect themselves. And when that fails, they're going to start rolling over on each other. Then we're going to see indictments and charges. And on the dark left, I call it, there's going to be an increase in violence in this country as Trump and Barr move in and begin to expose these people, especially Hillary Clinton. We're going to see an increase in violence against Trumpers and voters and others. as they see that their whole global structure is coming down, and Hillary Clinton is going to be charged. So there's a social side of this, in that I think there's going to be an increase in violence against civilians, especially Trump supporters and the police, as this gets worse.
Do you think Obama is going to ultimately be charged?
Obama should ultimately be charged. And in my opinion, yes, the evidence is too strong that he not only knew about this, but he was, even from the text from Strzok and Page, that he was calling the shots on us. This leads directly to Barack Hussein Obama. He received the presidential daily brief, which I used to be involved in every single day, giving him updates on what the FBI and the CIA was doing with this Russian collusion farce. He knows, he's witting, and he engineered it. And eventually, with Trump and Barr in place, it's going to lead straight to Barack Hussein Obama, who I have said before and say again, was a subversive president.
No way he could have not known about it.
Not possible. Nope.
Not possible. Let's talk about your, this is great. You're giving this to us for free. You also have a Patreon channel where you come out and you talk for short spurts or long spurts, and people will pay a couple of dollars a Patreon or donation or whatever. Talk about your Patreon channel where you come on and you give updates to what's going on.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. We moved over to Patreon, and you can get in with just $1, and then I have upper levels where I teach on how to spot a liar and counter surveillance. But I moved over there because I don't have advertisers, and I'm not dependent on sponsors. We're free to talk about and investigate anything we want, and we're not subject to YouTube's algorithms that have been harassing me for the last 2 years. So I moved over to Patreon. It's patreon.com/Kevin_Shipp. And every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we get into issues that you won't see in the media and you won't see on some conservative outlets because we dig deep into this stuff and we have no one to answer to. We have a program on 9/11. We have a program on 5G. I have a program on the Robert Mueller report and Mueller's connections. And we address things like that head on every Thursday night.
You have a deep resume. I just skimmed the surface. I mean, at one point you have a high enough clearance to actually protect the CIA director. So you have to stand in the room and hear what he says. You also have a big counterintelligence resume. You have a big digital resume as well. You're the real deal, Holyfield. You lost your pension. Is that right?
Yeah, when I came out to expose the CIA, their cover-up, their break-ins, and the things that they'd done illegally in the United States, I lost my retirement. So I exist off basically my Patreon site, my books, and my speeches and things. And actually, my wife and I have built an off-the-grid farm. This studio is off the grid. So we countered the CIA's attempt to destroy me financially. They blackballed me with 2 of my friends and supervisors tried to hire me. The CIA blackballed me from any employment outside of that. So I've had to survive on my own, and by the grace of God, I've done so. This studio is an example. I built this studio myself. We built the farm ourselves. It's off the grid. We're kind of down in the woods, and our farm is the love of our life. So we survived, and we survived because we love this country. And I consider the abuse of secrecy by the shadow government an abomination. And that is my mission, whether I like it or not, to expose this stuff. And I have to tell you, Greg, what President Trump and Attorney General Barr are doing now is something I only used to dream of.
Also, your book, From the Company of Shadows, that's still for sale. So for the love of freedom.com.
Right. .net.
.net. For the love of freedom.net. For the love of freedom, all one word, .net. You can also buy the book From the Company of Shadows. You put it out in 12, but it's totally valid and totally up to date. And some of the stuff you're talking about now, you talk about in the book. It explains it's thick. Kevin Shipp, thank you so much for joining. Also, one last thing, because you don't make a lot of money and you don't have retirement, which a lot of government employees depend on. Not you. You also have a donation page. Is that right? Some type of donation thing that you'll send me a link to?
Yes, I'll send you a link to the donation page, and that can be found on fortheloveoffreedom.net also, but I'll send that to you as well.
I'll put it on in the after the interview section. Kevin Shipp, former CIA officer, thank you so much for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg. Always a pleasure.